The Florida Panthers are looking to avoid their first three-game losing streak of the season, and Sergei Bobrovsky says that it is, in fact, a privilege to be an all-star.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, January 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So, Florida Panther fans, a lot to talk about on today's edition of the show. All-star jerseys have been. We're going to talk about the all-star jerseys that two of the Florida Panthers players will be participating in Toronto in the first weekend of February. Talk about the newest deal with Amazon and Diamond Sports, and finish it off with previewing tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings. But it is a Wednesday, which is a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. We have Jacob Winans here for today's show. And Jacob, I want to go right into this topic here. So Sergei Bobrovsky spoke to the media and talked about how it is a privilege to be an all-star when it came to being voted in by the fans. But also Paul Maurice spoke heavily on Sergei Bobrovsky and talking about the ups and downs that he went through after signing the big deal on between the Vezina trophies and the All-Star. A lot of ups and downs, but also when it comes to appreciating him is the fact that we see it on the daily versus when you go to an all-star game. And I know a lot of people don't put too much stock into it, but the fact that it's a national event and for a lot of fans to see once again the name recognition that's there, not necessarily the play in the game. No, we're not putting too much stock into it, but the fact that the name is there, this has to be really important for his legacy.
I agree, especially his Panthers legacy in particular. His accolades and everything he was able to do with the Blue Jackets. There's no question he was the best goalie in the entire world for a significant amount of time with the Blue Jackets. But his Panthers legacy, it's definitely been a bumpy road at some points, and he's always gonna be judged by his contract, which in a sports world that's unfair. To judge someone based on how much money they make, but it's the reality of living in a salary cap world. When you get paid a certain amount, expectations are higher. That's just the way it is. And Bob he started off rough with the Panthers. He had a couple really difficult years transitioning to life as a Florida Panther, and his play reflected that. But he's turned it on. He's had a couple excellent seasons. He carried them to the Stanley Cup final. And now having an all-star game, becoming an all-star for the first time as a Panther, it says a lot about his resiliency as a Panther and the time he spent here. He's doing everything he can. Now he's not thinking about this, I'm sure, but he's doing everything he can to live up to the billing of being that franchise goalie. And I think he's proving his worth and making an all-star game. That's a significant achievement because goalies fluctuate so much. But at his age and the fact that he's still as consistent as he is, he's still an all-star level player. It says a lot about his preparation, his work, and the fact that he's able to follow up a fantastic playoff run with an all-star game berth for himself. That's really impressive if you think about it.
No doubt. Very impressive. And just even how we judged him too, based on how it started for him here, and the fact that he's bounced back and all, and even national media um d- um getting on his case about his play too. It's great to see that there has been that bounce back, and even though let's be honest about the market and the national coverage that is here, when they see, some might not even watch the games, and some might just look at the numbers from the beginning and just say, oh, he's just the typical narrative of, oh, he's just going there to retire. But no, it hasn't been that. And for him to just to live up get closer to living up to the full contract is a lot. It says speaks a lot of volumes on his mental toughness when times have gotten hard, for sure, for Sergei Bobrovsky. But before we end this first segment, we are going to actually we're actually going to discuss more about our opinions on the All-Star jerseys that the players will be wearing when they take the ice in Toronto later at the end of excuse me at the beginning of February. And this collaboration, if you're watching this on the YouTube, you could see the jerseys on this tweet by Joe Shad. Uh, a little bit of a collaboration with Justin Bieber. A few seasons ago, we spoke about how we saw that the collaboration between Bieber and the Leafs, the reversible jersey, but now this is a new concept with the All-Star jerseys game being in Toronto. Jacob, I kind of like to create the opportunity to be creative, but the design, it ain't it for me.
Yeah, I look at it and I try to think of something positive to say. The red one doesn't look too bad from a color scheme perspective. I kind of like the white. Not a big fan of the design. I would not call myself a fashion expert by any stretch. You're lucky if you ever see me in anything other than sweatpants and a t-shirt. But this would not be my ideal All-Star jersey at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because if you guys watch this show on YouTube and you see how whenever I put pictures and thumbnails and text and all, but whenever, just to give you kind of behind the scenes of like using something like Canva and lining up things up together to put text and pictures together, it feels like this was an opportunity for the people who designed the jersey to use Canva and line it up. But the NHL logo, you stretch it out a little bit over the star. I mean, yeah, that's on purpose in this one, but it feels like that they were just trying to put it so much in your face when it comes to this one. I do like the stars on the sleeves. That I kind of like. But as far as the initial one, I don't know. It seems like a little overkill.
Yeah, I agree. It looks a little bit too much like it looks like something that I would have created for like a creative team in an NHL video game when I was like 15 years old. I'm not really a big fan of the super in your face logo there in the middle. It looks a little weird on the star. I like, you did point out the sleeves. I do kind of like the sleeves. I'm not gonna lie. The sleeves work. It's I don't know. The logo's off to me, and then when you flip it around, the nameplate on the back was just
On the lower back.
Yeah, the nameplate on the lower back, and it looked like it was lowercase from what I saw. It just, yeah, that's not my favorite. No, thanks.
You're out of words to say on it, and I'm in full agreement with you there. And these will be, I believe I saw 190 on Fanatics when it comes to these jerseys. Don't quote me on that as far as price for the sweaters. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss more about the latest with Bally Sports, as there have been rumblings on what could be the future as far as streaming Florida Panthers games. We are going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper, and we're past the halfway point of the season, and regardless of where the Panthers are in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Sam Reinhart, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, if they'll record more or less than their Sleeper projections like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Cats fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Back on this Wednesday, January 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on the Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So, Jacob, this morning we saw an announcement based on the latest update on Diamond Sports Group, which parent company is Sinclair Broadcasting Group, which is the Diamond is Bally Sports for those who kind of get the names mixed up. Even I get the names mixed up too from time to time. But so the latest with Bally Sports, as they have filed for bankruptcy last season, and a lot of the way they structured their streaming services, which is honestly in a way that I like, honestly, because watch the game, no commercials. I love that I could watch and the login. Honestly, now the way they're doing it, the QR code, log in, touch on my iPhone, boom, easy to log in and no commercials. But the lack of advertising does not pay the bills, unfortunately. So there's been a lot of debt filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and all that stuff, and with an agreement to creditors, Diamond Sports Group is now going to be separate from Sinclair Media, but nothing to worry. There's an agreement with NHL and NBA to keep the local rights at the end of the season. So with partnerships with 37 NBA, MLB, and NHL teams, there's a $100 million cash infusion and a $495 million settlement from Sinclair. So, but as far as baseball, quickly going on the Marlins, their games will be streamed on Amazon Prime starting this season. But we don't know if the Panthers and Heat will now follow after, but we can't be surprised if they do. So games, as of right now, as written by Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, will still be accessed on Bally Sports Florida and Bally Sports Sun for those games. But looks like if Amazon Prime Video does get the opportunity to stream the games, Florida Panther games, and the rest of the NHL, there might be an opportunity for, if you want to watch hockey, period, and the Panthers are on, you will not have access to the other games nationally. So, which is why having both ESPN Plus and Amazon Prime can work both ways. If you're a local fan for Panthers on Amazon Prime, that's if they go that direction, and then ESPN Plus for national games if you happen to be an out-of-town sports fan. So, Jacob, I know I threw a lot at you just now with Bally Sports and Amazon Prime, but looks like this is heading into a positive direction as far as still having access to hockey here in South Florida.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Access is number one, and then kind of the quality of that access and making sure we get to keep our local broadcasters, Goldie and Randy and the team. I feel like they're so ingrained in South Florida now with the Panthers. you don't want to. Anytime you hear anything about new media rights, you immediately get concerned about what that could mean for the team you currently have, which keeping them around is very important. But access to watching our local team in South Florida is huge, because the Panthers are in a spot now where they're as relevant as they've ever been. The building is packed on a nightly basis. The interest in hockey has never been higher in South Florida, and they're a perennial contender at this point. So you don't want to have any kind of disruption in stopping the growth of the game in the region. So being able to maintain that access for South Florida is massive. From the standpoint of the quality of that access when it comes to streaming, the quality of the streams, we've seen Amazon Prime have some issues with NFL games. That's obviously very, very different from local hockey games. You won't be dealing with anywhere near the same amount of traffic or anything like that. So I wouldn't necessarily compare the two and use that as a concern. But it's definitely going to be different. That there's some differences there. All in all, I'm more positive than negative on it, because you get to, like we said, access to the game is the biggest thing. And personally, I will definitely be keeping ESPN Plus and watching national games as well, from around the country, around the U.S. and Canada. Being able to see games at any time is really cool. But you can't really beat having hockey access in your local market, especially one like the Panthers have, where we're in a very, very critical time for growing the game, because this is the best the Panthers have been consistently in their franchise's history, and you want to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and I can't speak for Vinny Viola, someone like him, but when there's probably a little sweat going down your back whenever you're thinking about the opportunity to get some TV rights deals, and delayed payments as well, when it comes to that too. But now that you're talking about the company with the guy who has either the biggest net worth or the second biggest, him and Elon Musk switch so often based on that. But the fact that someone like him is getting involved in it is helps those people sleep better at night, as far as when it comes to that, and as well. And for us, so as fans of the game, to be able to watch the game as well. So I think that's a big help for everyone involved, and I think that's just a big win. Obviously, it's going to be costly. You're likely going to have to pay for another streaming service as well. But however, this is the way I see it as well. If you only watch one specific genre, and you don't really watch you don't watch reality TV or something like that, I'm just naming one specific genre, and you're just focused based on your sports, like ESPN Plus and Prime Video, those could be the only things that you need as far as that. And when you compare that to a regular cable bill, obviously everyone's different. You could actually find a way to save money there too.
Agreed. And I'm someone that I watch a ton of sports, so it's just, for me, it'll really just be about prioritizing what's the most important thing to me in sports. As far as viewership is the biggest thing for me, so I would put that at the forefront personally. But it's also just a product of the way the TV market is going. I mean, everything is trending towards streaming. This is it might seem a little annoying to have this pop up right now for you guys as Miami Dolphins fans. There was the national outrage over the fact that game was locked to a Peacock stream, unless you were in South Florida in the local market, being able to watch it locally in certain instances. But yeah, it's a streaming world now, and everything is going towards streaming, and we can't run from it, can't hide from it. It's just the way it's going to be.
No doubt.
And we've seen this with other teams, other sports. I want to say it's the Phoenix Suns in the NBA have a streaming service specifically for their games that they offer to fans. It's the direction it's going in, so it might as well just accept it.
Yep, I'm there, unfortunately, as far as that. Yep. And for the wild card game on Saturday, which after seeing what happened, I wish I didn't pay the $6, but I paid the $6 and then I canceled the subscription. That's it. Just paid $6 to watch that game. Boom. And it's over with as well. But you could always renew subscriptions as well. So there are ways around it constantly as far as that. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to prepare for tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings, as the Panthers will be in game 4 of 5 in their current homestand. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only. Available to U.S. customers. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, January 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. So, Panthers, Red Wings tonight from Amerant Bank Arena. Florida, winner of the last 10 in a row that the Florida Panthers have beaten the Detroit Red Wings, 7 of them by 2 or more goals. And also, programming note, with the Chicago Blackhawks Buffalo Sabres game being postponed tonight due to travel reasons, the Panthers Red Wings game will now be available on TNT on Matthew Tkachuk bobblehead night as well. As far as lineup, even though Paul Maurice said that Barkov should be fine for tonight's game, he is not in the lineup, as Lundell will be on the top line with Eetu Luostarinen and Sam Reinhart. The second line stays the same, and Evan Rodriguez will be on the third line with Kevin Stenlund and Ryan Lomberg, while Steven Lorentz is in, and Kulikov is back in the lineup in place of Josh Mahura. For the Detroit Red Wings, Patrick Kane is out. He will not be playing the next 2 games, as he had a hip injury, fell on his hip, and apparently it's not in relation to his offseason surgery, but they don't want to speculate more as far as that. But 16 points in 19 games played, 7 goals, 9 assists for -3 as well for him. But Jacob, the last go round that these two teams played, low scoring game, 2-0 shutout, but the amount of shots that the Florida Panthers did not allow the Red Wings, 22 to be exact. And there's a formula when it comes to the Panthers and their style of play. But man, does it really match up against this Detroit Red Wings team? I know that they've been struggling as far as injuries. Jake Wallman's not playing it neither as well tonight. Dylan Larkin was out for a while after that horrific injury against the Senators a few months ago. But just the Panthers, it's a really good matchup as far as tonight goes.
Yeah, historically, for the last little bit, the Panthers have been dominant against Detroit. Now, on the Detroit side, I can see why, where Barkov being out, they may be thinking this is a really, really good time for them to end that losing streak to the Panthers, because Barkov is absolutely a monster against Detroit anytime they match up. But it's a good opportunity for the Panthers too, because Anton Lundell has struggled a lot. And now he's going to be reunited with Sam Reinhart for at least a game or 2. That should, you would think, be a boost to his game. Evan Rodriguez moving down with Stenlund and Lomberg. You think Erod might be able to really drive that line, maybe get some offense from the bottom 6 for a change. It's gonna be a defensive game, because without Barkov, the offense is somewhat limited. And without Barkov, everyone else is going to have to step up defensively, because he carries so much of the load defensively for that forward group. He's the best defensive forward in hockey, and it's gonna take a lot defensively. They're gonna have to stay out of the box. The one thing Detroit can do well, they have a lot of offensive weapons that can score on the power play, so you got to stay out of the box against them. And it should be a game where you try to get a lot of shots. It's Alex Lyon in net. We are familiar with the Lion King. I'm sure he would love nothing more than to get a win tonight against the team he played for last year. But he's the type of goalie you want to get a ton of shots at. We've seen him stand on his head. We've seen that firsthand, but we've also seen when you get 40 shots at him, he may make some really spectacular saves, but 40 shots at the volume sometimes will catch up to him, and he'll give up 2 or 3. He'll give up a soft one here or there if the volume is high enough. So that's got to be the strategy, and getting points out of a game without Barkov would go a long way, because the Panthers, following up that fantastic 9-game win streak, they've dropped 2 in a row. They haven't necessarily looked bad doing it, but you want to get back on track. You don't want to let the losses pile up at all. So it's a big one tonight, and it's a division opponent, which is always bigger than just a regular game.
No doubt. And speaking of division, I mean, the Red Wings are right there as far as the wild card spot. They're tied with Tampa Bay in points, 1 behind Toronto as well. So Matthew Tkachuk spoke about that they're playing desperate, but everyone else is whenever they're up and down as well. He spoke specifically about that about the Kings last week, but we're going to see a desperate effort from the Detroit Red Wings as well, as they can score in bunches, especially even strength, but they have a hard time defending on their end. Alex Lyon, no starts before the previous matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings on November 2nd. But then after Lyon's first start on November 17th, which the Detroit Red Wings were one of those teams that carried 3 goalies at one point, and no appearances in relief as well. So started 13 games after. 922 save percentage, 2.58 GAA for a 9-4-1 record. And the only other goalie on Detroit who has over 900 save percentage is actually a former Panther who only started 1 game too, Michael Hutchinson. So that's another name as far as that. So, and Detroit is doing pretty good in their last 10, 6-3-1 in their last 10, while Toronto has lost 4 in a row, and that was actually their most recent matchup on Sunday as well. So this is big as far as what Lundell could do with reuniting with someone who helped him in his confidence in his game, in Sam Reinhart, which I believe that's what Bill Zito is going to be looking for at the deadline as well, to someone to work with him as well for this too. So I think it's a big opportunity ahead, and also a big opportunity to look back, know what worked. And also, the Panthers were 66% in the in faceoffs their last meeting too. So that's going to be important, especially defensive zone. Once again, when you know that Detroit, that with how fast they are. I mean, Alex DeBrincat as well. Let's not forget about how he can score, even though he won't have Patrick Kane tonight. There's a lot of dangerous players on this roster. Shane Gostisbehere, he's going to be on the top pair, mostly on the third pair. He can run a power play too. So that's another thing that Detroit is very dangerous with. And let's not forget Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond, 2 young players that they're building around.
Yeah, it's a team that's got plenty of skill, and where they are in the standings right now is really a product of their offense. They can explode for goals against anyone. What the way the Panthers played defensively against Anaheim, you have some lapses, a couple of mistakes here and there, and then they end up in the back of your net. That's exactly what Detroit is capable of doing, just at a higher level than Anaheim does. And we got burned against the Ducks, playing a little bit loose in some spots. You can't have that against the Red Wings. The Panthers have a long win streak against them. Everyone knows about it. I guarantee the Red Wings know about it. They want to end that streak. You don't want to have consistent losses against a divisional opponent, but it's not like Detroit gets to these games against Florida and just kind of lays down and takes the loss. A lot of these games are close games. Yeah. A lot of these games are 1-goal games. They get chippy, they get physical. And Detroit has some big bodies. They've got, especially on their defense, They've got a handful of former Panthers that we're familiar with their games. They've got offense. They have some really skilled, speedy wingers. They've got Dylan Larkin, who's one of the most underrated players in the game. It's not an opponent you can take lightly. So I'm looking for the Panthers to come out and really put an emphasis on defense after a pretty loose performance against Anaheim. Really, really hone in on defense. The goals will come. And then you just hope you don't get goalied by Alex Lyon, because you know he's capable.
Yeah, and we saw that when Chris Drieger made his return to South Florida a few years ago. He got a win in his first start. There'll be a tribute video for Alex Lyon for sure, because the Panthers wouldn't be in this position, in the position they were, in the playoffs if it weren't for him. So great. Can't wait to see what the reception the Lion King will receive tonight from Amerant Bank Arena. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, talking about All-Star, Sergei Bobrovsky, Bally Sports, and tonight's game. So tell everybody where they can find you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at JacobWinans8.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and see you next week, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stuart Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.